Hello.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Mark Hugh, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Ron Agresta. Thank you for spending part of your Innovate agenda with us. Today's session is about how data management needs to evolve in the AI era, not incrementally, but structurally. We're seeing AI move from experimentation into real operational use. And that shift is exposing weaknesses in how data is governed, prepared, and trusted. This isn't a feature walkthrough, it's a roadmap conversation. So we're going to talk about what's changing, why it matters now, and how SAS is reorienting data management on Viya around the realities of AI at enterprise scale. Between the two of us, we cover both sides of this equation. So Ron leads product management for data management at SAS, and I lead product marketing for the same portfolio. Here's how we're going to spend our time. So we'll start with why data management matters more now than it did even a few years ago, specifically in the context of AI. Then we'll talk about SAS's long-term visions and introduce the concept of the data intelligence layer. From there, we'll talk about SAS's data management portfolio relaunch in June, which we're really excited to introduce you guys to today. And then finally, we'll close by going into some highlighted spotlight features on our product roadmap, which will ground in 3 key themes. All right, so you'll notice that this agenda is intentional, and everything that we cover today ladders up to one central question, which is, how do you accelerate analytics and AI without losing trust, control, and accountability? As AI moves faster, data management can't stay in the background. It has to operate at runtime. And so keep that question in mind as we move forward, because it's really part of the roadmap that we've designed to address this challenge. So AI has moved from experimentation to expectation. But what we're seeing with customers is consistent. AI doesn't fix data problems, it exposes them. Your AI, as you guys all know, is only as good as the data that it's built on, right? And as the old adage goes, garbage in, garbage out, right? And in the AI era, it's more like garbage in, garbage scaled. And that's what the image, let me go back. That's what this image is meant to convey, right? You can stack really impressive AI on top, but if the foundation underneath it is weak, it eventually collapses. And in the AI era, this risk is really amplified, right? Data is more distributed than ever, and most organizations are stitching this together with fragmented tools and inconsistent governance. The results are inevitably bad, and we've all seen the headlines. Most AI projects stall, costs spiral, trust erodes, and especially in regulated industries where explainability and data lineage aren't optional, right? The bottom line is this: data management maturity is a major constraint on AI success. And that's why it's more critical than ever, and that's why SAS is treating it that way. So, if data management matters more than ever in our AI era, then governance that's added after the fact cannot keep up with AI at scale. That's what this diagram on the left displays. Here, governance sits outside of the platform. It's bolted on after the fact, reporting on what's happened. Most organizations that struggle with AI in production aren't struggling because their models are bad. They're struggling because their governance didn't travel with the data. The lineage breaks at tool boundaries. The quality rules exist on paper, but they don't run at query time. That's the bolted-on world. And it worked fine for dashboards, but it doesn't work for AI at scale. All right, let's see if it builds out. Okay, good. So on the right, this is what we call data intelligence, right? It's not just analytics or governance. It's this idea that data management, analytics, and trust are operating as one continuous system. In the AI era, managing data isn't just about moving and preparing it. It's about ensuring that access, engineering, and governance travel with the data wherever it runs and however it's used. This is what SAS Viya enables. It's a single platform where unified data access, adaptive engineering, active trust and control are embedded directly into the pipelines, queries, and model workflows themselves. That's how governance stops being something you audit after the fact and starts becoming something that actively shapes decisions before they happen. The key point here is that governance is not the cost of operating in the AI era. It's the precondition for operating in it with confidence. I'll now hand it over to Ron to talk more about SAS's long-term vision.
Yep, thanks, Mark.
Sure.
All right, so let's start with a bit of a backdrop from a market challenges perspective. So you've got data all over the place. You've got them in on-premises, in the cloud, software as a service applications in your AI data science sandboxes, and it's really challenging to make sense of all that, and it makes it hard for you to start to implement the governance and quality routines that you really need to get to the next stage of the governance piece. And while you're worrying about where the data is and who has access to the data, you get stuck on not being able to implement the proper governance controls and feel like your data is going to be set for and ready for your AI projects. And as you're worrying about those things, then you're realizing that it's slowing down your ability to get those AI projects out and live. So the three things build on each other, and you'll see through the rest of this presentation that we're going to talk about here that those are the background themes to some of the things that we're building for in our roadmap. So another way to look at this is data management as a foundational piece often starts with where does the data live. So if you look at the bottom here, where the raw data is, that's often not necessarily up to you. It's an organizational choice about, do I want to invest in Databricks or S3 or BigQuery or you name it. And we're not here to say that SAS is going to replace that piece. That's just a bit of a given. And that's something that we have to work with. And that's not even necessarily the hardest part of what we're talking about here. It's maybe one of the more costly pieces, but not necessarily the more complex piece of managing data. What starts to get harder is getting up to the analytics piece. And so what we're proposing is this data intelligence layer in between here that starts to make sense of your raw data and supports your AI, your AI and analytics projects in a way that can scale, that you have trust in, that really supports ultimately where you want to go. And then at the top there is the value that we're driving from those pieces, and together the data and AI pieces are what SAS Viya delivers for you. So much in the same way that your data is fragmented, your technology can be fragmented. Would not be surprised if you're using a bunch of these tools in your environments today. And just as it's hard to make sense of data when it's all over the place, it's also hard to make sense of data when it's going through all these different systems. To connect those systems, to connect the standards and the formats and the governance and all the things you need to do to make all of that make sense in a quick and easy way can be very challenging. This is a fairly representative way of moving through data here. So you're accessing data, integrating data. You may choose a data warehouse technology or data lake, and then you're driving towards your end results here, business intelligence and AI and things like that. Where SAS comes in starts to make this simpler for you. So there's a couple of different things that SAS can do for you in this environment. One, you can choose to simplify completely with SAS. If you use SAS Viya, can replace a lot of the technologies you're using here today. So if you're accessing data or generating data with DataMaker, for example, if you want to use technology from SAS with our partner Single Store called SAS Speedy Store, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you can start to replace some of the data warehouse and data lake components here. And then ultimately, of course, we want you to be using SAS over there on the business intelligence and analytics side of things. But you can also choose to use a little bit more of a lightweight approach and use SAS more for a governance or last mile. So you can choose to stick with Databricks. You can choose to stick with your cloud provider. That's great. And then SAS can work on top of that and do more of the right half of this piece. So we can provide tools for your users that are fit for purpose for their use cases, driving towards analytics, but still sitting on top of whatever data, data foundation that you choose. And then finally, you could choose a hybrid as well, in which that's probably where most people end up. In some cases, you'll use Viya beginning to end. You use it for data and analytics. Some cases, it'll just be for data. Some cases for analytics, and some mixes in between, depending on whether you're really more geared for experimental use or whether you're geared really more for enterprise use. So no presentation from SAS would be complete without an analytics lifecycle diagram. So you've seen this before. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. This is data to decisions. And a lot of what we'll talk about in the next coming slides are the data intelligence layer and how it really makes this thing work. So it provides the governance, the reliability, the capabilities to get you from raw data, from potential to decisions. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mark.
All right, thank you, Ron. Okay, so from here, we're going to shift from why and what to how, specifically how that vision is translating into concrete changes in the SAS Viya data management portfolio. Specifically, what's changing with the June Viya release update, and how we're really trying to simplify and clarify our data management portfolio with that June release. So we're excited to announce that SAS is going to really refresh our data management Viya portfolio in June, and that's going to be around June 18th this year. And so this slide brings together this core idea that we've been building towards, which we call data intelligence. Data intelligence isn't a single product. It's not something new that we're asking you to buy. And it's not just like governance layered on top of analytics. Data intelligence, as SAS defines it, is this idea that accessing, preparing, governing analytics has to operate as one unified, connected system, especially in the AI era. On the top here, you see these three core pillars for how we believe you approach and get to data intelligence. And I'll have a slide later for a session tomorrow that is happening in the Innovation Hub that'll go into a lot more detail around these pillars and data intelligence that I recommend you all attend. But essentially, each of these three pillars aligns with these four core products, right? So modernize your data for AI aligns with the SAS Data Hub. That data hub delivers consistent, accurate data across the organization, so downstream systems and AI models operate from that same trusted foundation. Operationalize trusted data and AI at scale maps to two products, SAS Data and AI Studio and SAS Data Governance. So Data and AI Studio supports governed development and orchestration of analytics and AI from pipeline through to production. And SAS Data Governance ensures transparency, auditability, and policy compliance with lineage and controls embedded rather than bolted on. And then finally, accelerating your data ecosystem maps with SAS Data Accelerator, which delivers performance by pushing compute down to the data wherever it lives. Okay? The key point here is consistency. The same governance rules, lineage, and controls apply whether someone is exploring data, building a pipeline, or operationalizing a model. That's what allows organizations to move faster without creating blind spots. This is why we talk about data intelligence, not just data management. Managing data gets you storage, pipelines, ETL. Data intelligence gets you AI that's trustworthy, explainable, and repeatable in the real world. Those four products that I mentioned are packaged with SAS Viya, right? You get those with the SAS Viya bundles. They're not purchased separately. But beyond the core platform, SAS also provides complementary data solutions that address specific organizational needs without adding additional fragmentation. SAS Speedy Store accelerates data access and analytics at scale for high volume, latency sensitive workloads. And you probably saw in the general session today how Post and Bring is really getting a lot of value from their migration from SAS 9 to Speedy Store with Viya 4. And that's what we used to call single store with Viya. And then SAS Data Maker is our synthetic data generator, which is incredibly helpful for organizations building models, particularly valuable with regulated environments where using production data can create compliance exposure. All right, so with that said, you might be wondering, okay, so what exactly have you guys changed in June? Well, this upcoming portfolio relaunch, it's not like a rip and replace or anything like that, really. It's more of a refresh, and in that sense, we're not introducing any new products, right? We're simply simplifying how the current portfolio is organized. We're cleaning up names, and we're aligning our packaging to how customers are actually understanding and using SAS Viya's data management offerings today. So in essence, we're renaming 4 existing offerings. So here's what they're called today, and here's what they're going to be called in June, right? So SAS in-database technologies becomes SAS Data Accelerator, down in the bottom. Sorry if it's a little small. SAS Data Explorer is what becomes SAS Data Hub. SAS Information Catalog becomes SAS Data Governance. And then SAS Studio becomes SAS Data and AI Studio. Hopefully you're sensing a pattern there in the naming. Just as important as what's changed is what didn't. There is no forced upgrade that we're requiring you to do, no big bang transition. There's no requirement to re-architect your data stack. You can move forward incrementally, product by product, capability by capability, based on where you see value. So this relaunch, it's really about making our portfolio easier for everybody to understand, to adopt, and to grow with. It's really about just setting up the foundation for how our products are packaged today, as well as where our architecture is going. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Ron to talk about our roadmap spotlight.
Thanks, Mark. So where we'll start is where we left off with the context that I gave you about the fragmentation, about the lack of trust, and about the lack of speed. So our roadmap is really focused on a couple key areas: data engineering, data governance, and data acceleration, to address those pain points that we think everybody is experiencing. So let's start with SAS Studio. So SAS Studio, in case you don't know, that's the primary place inside SAS Viya where you program in SAS, program in Python, and now R. It's also the place where you build sophisticated data flows, get integration, impact analysis, missing all kinds of things. It's got 150 different custom pre-built steps in there and a custom step framework that you can build your own steps. You can visualize in there. You can connect to other parts of Viya. Really, really great application. And to see what the team has done over the last 2 years has really been amazing. It's so full-featured. And if you're an EG user, a DI Studio user, a Dataflux user from SAS 9, and maybe you looked at SAS Studio a year or two ago and said, it's not quite ready for us. We're not ready for it. I would say look again. I think with the migration that we have now to get you to SAS Studio, with the performance of the UI itself and all the capabilities, it's really quite amazing. And I think if you compare it to really any other data engineering application out there in the market period, I think it's on par, if not better. So I love SAS Studio. In case you can't tell here, soon to be Data AI Studio. It's a really great application, and you'll see a lot of additional capabilities in the roadmap here. Particularly, one that we'll talk about, you probably already heard about, is the Copilot capabilities that we're building all across Viya. So already in Model Studio have Copilot capabilities. This month, Visual Analytics and Visual Investigator have Copilot capabilities, which is awesome. In another month or so, SAS Studio will have Copilot capabilities. So this is very similar to the VS Code extension that's already out there, where you can use it to generate SAS code, to comment SAS code. It gives you suggestions and insights about what you're building inside, and it's all happening within SAS Studio. So it's all controlled and governed, connected to all the other pieces of SAS Viya. It's really changes the game in a lot of ways for SAS, and you will only see more of this. And in fact, I think after this session is Alexei Vodilin on the team is going to go in depth in some of these things, and you'll start to see some of the other things on the roadmap that were already on main stage today about the flow generation that's coming in SAS Studio. So really cool stuff from an engineering perspective. From a governance perspective, you heard Mark talk about Data Hub, and so this is an evolution of Data Explorer. So Data Explorer, full-featured, maybe a little bit utilitarian. It's a good component, but Data Hub really takes it to the next level and becomes the central gating place for how you provision and give access to data. Super important part of any governance program. So for administrators or for provisioned or for elevated users to be able to connect to and test data and then apply governance policies and provision those data sources to users across SAS Viya. It's really a new experience for how you're dealing with data in general. So it's a really step up, a big step up, and you're going to see a lot more in this area as we roll out more capabilities there. And then from a governance perspective is also information catalog, if you're not familiar with that part of SAS Viya. So that's the place that knows about all the assets that you may have created or pulled into SAS Viya. So whether that's reports or models or programs, you can get all the information you need about those assets in information catalog, and you can get lineage and connections and metadata about all those things. Where it really shines is on the data side. So we have these crawlers that can go and find all the data that's interesting to you and then tell you how big and how wide and what the quality is and what the formats are and all these other things. So in information catalog, as you scale, that's all fine and good. To collect that information becomes a lot harder to actually find what you need when you go from 1,000 tables to 10,000 to tens of thousands, 100,000s, and the data only gets bigger. So we are building a data discovery copilot out in not too long down the road that makes it a whole lot easier to find just the data you need using natural language, which is great. You have a faceted way to search now, but this is a little bit more intuitive and gets you right to the things that you want to use. And then it also gives you the context for what you're finding. So you're not searching through all the metadata yourself and looking at what's good and bad and otherwise. It's giving you the context of all of that so that you can make better decisions to find the data you need to drive your AI and analytics projects. From a data quality perspective, so if you're familiar with SAS 9, we have had for a long time this notion of data quality monitoring. So using our advanced data quality capabilities, using data step, using some UIs, you could, in rule builders, you could build data quality rules, and then you can monitor your data over time. You can plug that into would have been a Dataflex job or DI Studio job or just in your SAS code, and then you can make sure that your data is staying within whatever limits that you put on your data or making sure it adheres to the standards that are important to you. So in SAS Viya, in the coming months, we're rolling out that capability, data quality monitoring, inside information governance to do the same kinds of things. And so you'll be able to build rules native inside SAS, take advantage of open source rules. There'll be an API to programmatically work with that. There'll also be a UI and reporting on top of the data monitoring capability. And then ultimately, it also plugs into SAS Studio so that you can plug those rules right into your data flows. And then over time, that's a place where you'll see SAS solutions bring their own very specific domain rule libraries into data quality monitoring to really support regulatory compliance kinds of things. So pretty exciting stuff. Should be coming out in another couple months. But this was really one of the last big parity from SAS 9 to Viya things for data management that we're really like ticking the box on. So we're really excited to get that done as we continue to evolve information catalog. All right, switching gears. So we're going to get to the data acceleration piece. And so we're going to talk a little bit about in-database technology. So when you heard Jared mention on stage today, pushing your code into where the data is for real performant reasons, not moving the data around, it's a really important thing. We've done that for a long time on SAS 9. We do it on SAS Viya as well. For SAS 9 and even into SAS Viya, it became a little bit of a challenge to deliver the right capabilities in a timely way because each of the big data platforms were different and different enough where we had to have our engineering team figure out how new ways to deploy and move SAS code into the target data source and so on. What we're now taking advantage of is most of the big data platforms have Spark available to them, and that gives us the ability to have a unified architecture for our in-database technology. So it makes it a lot easier both for us and for you, ultimately to get the capabilities you need to take advantage of moving your SAS code, your scoring code into the database itself, and take advantage of things like parallel read and write and so on. It's a little bit hard to see here, but in the middle there you see Single Store. So Single Store is a longtime partner of ours. They have a really cool technology that is analytic and transactional database, also supports agentic use cases, and it's also portable, runs on all major clouds and in their environment, and that fits up really nicely with SAS Viya. So in the same way, we're taking advantage of the unified architecture for Single Store, but we've also added a bunch of other capabilities through that unique co-development partnership where we can push down even more interesting things, where clauses and group bys and formats and analytic models and things like that to really accelerate the performance for those kinds of things. And particularly for use cases for visual analytics, we've had a lot of good luck for making the very large reports with lots of data really perform very quickly because we're pushing a lot of the processing right through the CAS layer into Single Store to do those kinds of things. So it's really exciting stuff. And you probably remember from the main stage today, we talked about Poston. I'm not going to go into the details here. I think there's actually a presentation going on now, and there's another one also that will go into the details. But that's a really good success story for how we worked with Single Store and how we worked with this customer. And really the whole idea behind this slide is it's taken us a couple years to mature that relationship. That's no knock on Single Store. They've had a really great technology, and it's really been good for as long as the partnership goes on. But we had to find the right way to connect SAS, Viya, and Single Store together to take advantage of all the goodness that they bring and all the things that we have from an analytics and data visualization perspective and making those things work together. So it's a really good story. Recommend you go and take another look at Single Store, or excuse me, SAS Speedy Store, the offering that encompasses Single Store. Take a look at it again. If you looked at it a couple years ago and you're like, nah, I'm not sure it's for me, I think it's worth taking a look at. And then finally, let's talk a little bit about DuckDB again. This was a main stage topic. And so DuckDB is a highly performant columnar analytic in-memory database and runtime. It's very fast for analytic use cases. And when you persist the data, when you want to take it out of memory, persist the data, it's highly compressed. And so there's some benefits there, obviously, from a performance and storage perspective. And the really cool piece is it can sit on top of open file formats like Iceberg, like Python, or not Python, like
Parquet.
Yep, exactly. And so it makes it transparent to take advantage of those things. And even on top of that it works like any other data library. So data lib to DuckDB lets you take advantage of all the programming paradigms and constructs that you're used to in SAS. And really is just as one more representative way over the last couple of years where you see SAS taking advantage of an open source project or just taking advantage of open standards in general and not feeling like it has to be in a SAS data set, has to be in a SAS 7BDAT file, has to work in a particular way. We have more and more expanding our capabilities across Viya to take advantage of Python, open file formats, and these other open source projects where it makes sense. So with that, I think it's back over to you to summarize.
All right. Well, we've covered a lot today, so I'm just going to try to summarize it in 6 key takeaways. First, AI obviously has raised the stakes for governance. AI doesn't make, I should probably advance the slide. It doesn't make weak foundations survivable, it makes them visible, right? You can stack impressive AI models on top, but if the data underneath isn't governed, trustworthy, and explainable, the AI fails fast, and it often fails in ways that are really hard to recover from. In the AI era, the cost of getting governance wrong is higher, and the margin for error is thinner. 2, you don't have to choose between speed and control. When governance is embedded into the platform running alongside pipelines, queries, and model workflows, speed and control can reinforce each other instead of competing. And that principle showed up in everything you just saw in the roadmap that Ron went over. Acceleration without bypassing trust, automation without sacrificing accountability. All right. Third, 1 second, let me try and slide this down. All right, data intelligence is a missing layer. Modern platforms are really good at ingesting and storing data, but often what they're missing is this layer of trust, governance, and orchestration. And this is something that we believe SAS Viya can uniquely add on top of wherever you're storing your data, be it in some hyperscaler, Databricks, Snowflake. Will work with whatever you have, hybrid, on-prem, in the cloud. Fourth, modernizing without lock-in, right? We recognize that, technology changes quickly, the flavor of the day changes really quickly, and we're not trying to lock you in, and one of the benefits of Viya is that it allows you to, adapt whatever open file technologies, open table technologies you need, and future-proof the way that you modernize your data architecture. And that's something that we recognize is important for a lot of organizations as they modernize. Number 5, this June 2026 update, it's really more of a portfolio refresh, right? It's about clarity, it's about simplifying the adoption of our data management portfolio. And then 6th, finally, there's never been a better time to move to Viya. So if you're on SAS 9 and you've been thinking about it, we've shown you a lot of the good reasons to embrace Viya. We've got a great set of tools and experts. Check out the Move to Viya booth. Come talk to us. We're really excited to help all of y'all on SAS 9 to move to Viya. All right, so that's the key takeaways. Let me move over now. And before we turn to Q&A, a couple of actions I'd like to propose for you. First, go deeper. We have a ton of great data management sessions over the rest of Innovate on everything that we touched on. Speedy Store, the Viya Copilots, DuckDB. So if any of those themes resonated, please make sure to attend those sessions. In particular, we've got this Copilot for Data Engineers technical overview happening right after this in Texoma 3. So please go check that out. And then tomorrow afternoon, please attend the Spotlight session, Transform Your Data into an AI Engine at 3:20 p.m. in the Innovation Hub, which will go into more detail on the importance of data intelligence. And then secondly, come talk to us at the booth. We've got a data management booth, a SAS Studio booth, a SAS 9 booth, a Move to Viya booth. We'd love to show you a demo. Ron and I would be truly grateful if you could take a minute to share any feedback on this session. It really helps us out. And with that, let's open it up. We'd love to take your questions. Yes, sir.
To Viya. Oh, hi. I'm Charles Basham. Hi, everyone. So how is SAS helping the legacy developers and analysts transition to Viya and growing that talent so that they can help SAS leverage this new platform, if you will?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So you probably heard on stage today, Christiana Likens, she was talking about the migration, how we took posting from their SAS 9 to Viya 4. There are a lot of tools, there are data assessment tools that we can make that are available to you to understand what can move and how seamlessly it can move. There are tools that can take your EG projects and other code and bring that over into SAS Viya. So there's a lot of those kinds of things that we've done for a number of customers that make that easier path. Now there are some things that aren't direct moves, and we'll call those out. If you're a Dataflux user, for example, that's a bit of a challenge. We've got, come find me, we got some things that we can talk about. But for just about everything else, we have a really good way to assess what you have, see what will and won't work, and then help you get there. So it's, like I said earlier, over the last 2 years or so, the huge push for SaaS has been this moving customers to Viya when they're ready. And when they're ready, we want to have the tools available to you. So there's a lot there, and come see me afterwards. We can chat a little bit about it.
Absolutely. One thing I'll mention in terms of those tools, so there's tools that we have like SAS9 Content Advisor, which can take a look at your entire estate and help you understand, which jobs do you actually use the most, which ones can you maybe prioritize moving over first, things like that. And beyond all the tools and macros and things, we just have a bunch of experts who've done this a ton of times, right? And have been there and can probably have probably seen that specific challenge before in your industry, and are there to work with your team and go through that migration challenge together. Any other questions? Yes, this gentleman over there. We've got microphones. Oh, if you could just hold for the microphone, maybe.
I'm Mark Sanford. I'm at TD Bank. I'm just wondering, like, in terms of we're on SAS9, and I think one of the things we need to look at, of course, is going to Viya, and of course AI. But is just to help understand the case to move there, is there anything happening with AI on the legacy SAS9? Are you introducing Copilot type of capabilities there? Or is it strictly part of, I guess, maybe a business case to move to the Viya?
I missed a part of it.
If we're introducing any of the Copilots or AI stuff on SAS9.
Oh, no, not likely. And maybe indirectly, you might be able to get access to some of the Copilot capability from SAS9, but there are no plans right now to do the same types of integration that we've got in SAS Studio and VA and VI and all those other places. So that experience will not end up showing up in DI Studio or anything like that. But in the same way that you can get access to a lot of AI capabilities sort of behind the scenes through services and other things, you may be able to get access to some of those things, but nothing is defined yet. So I'm not going to close the door completely, but Viya 4 is the focus, and we hope one of the reasons why you want to get there is to start to take advantage of the Copilot stuff that's there on Viya.
Yeah. First, thank you for the presentation. I have a question. So thinking from a clinical trial, so the patient-level data from upstream to downstream, you collect the data at the site. So through, like, for example, EDC, IMID data, whatever. Then you have the DM to centralize, like, store the data and distribute it for data review and then for analysis. My question is, at which step you think SAS can help, or the AI tool can help us to make it more efficient, and which step you cannot help? From my understand to this presentation, you will not cover the data collection step. Is this correct? Thanks.
We won't power the what?
Data collection step.
Yeah, so you're talking about the left-hand side of that diagram where I had all the tools. Yeah, so SAS has got, I want to say, 25 access engines. You probably know the SAS Access to whatever, and they cover 85 to 90 data sources. And so I would be hesitant to say that we don't have a really good story to connect to data and be very performant about how we pull data into the SAS environment, because we do. So I didn't want to leave anybody with that impression like we were leaving the left-hand side of that diagram alone. Because we do have some places where we can parallel load and push data around, and so that definitely can help there. Through things like SAS Studio and Information Catalog and the other capabilities, we feel like we've got some interesting pieces all along the way to make it easier for you to integrate your data, to understand what you're doing, and make it fit for purpose for AI. I think that's probably one of the key takeaways from just SAS in general, is that really tight connection between the data capabilities built for better AI. So I'm hoping that if you haven't adopted already or you're thinking about it, that you see that we can really streamline the ability to take advantage of all the great data integration, connectivity, the push-down capabilities, running your programs right inside the data. There's a lot of capabilities there to get to that whole notion of data intelligence, where you're really asking your data to do a whole lot more of the heavy lifting to get better AI results, because it's well understood, it's a good format, it's performant, it's just like clicking away in the way you need it to get value from your AI, I hope. So I think we can probably help all along the journey. I'm not just saying that because I'm the SAS guy, but I do think that we've got capabilities that really fit a lot of your journey from a data perspective as you're building out your AI projects.
I'll also just add, I mean, obviously this is a data management session, but, and you probably know this, but within the life science industry, we have a lot of very specialized solutions. I'm no expert in it, but further up or to the right of that chain that you know, can add a lot of value once you've got the data collected. Yes, on the left side, I'd say it's more on the access side, which is where we begin to take part in the journey.
It's me again. Looking for brownie points. No. Anyway, I really appreciate the presentations, as my colleague mentioned, but I don't see where there's comparisons to other industry tools. Like, for instance, have we benchmarked the Viya product against, say, Alteryx or some other tools that other companies are going to, or even just a hand-coded Python or R grid running, you know, on a common database? You know, it's nice to be able to say you're doing great, but it's also good to see how you're doing compared to the world.
Yeah, it's a fair question, Charles, and the answer is yes, actually. A couple of years ago, we did a study where, which we did with a third party called Futurum Group, where we compared SAS Viya versus a popular commercial vendor, we cannot name, but a very popular one, and then an open source setup for a common data analytics task that was a customer churn model. And there were three primary sets of tasks for three common personas. And as I recall, it was a data engineer, so that's more on the data management side, so data cleansing, ETL, that sort of stuff. Then data science work, so building a model, and then deploying that model, so more sort of machine learning, AI engineering type stuff. And across that process, and I think Brian mentioned that in the morning, we were substantially faster. And I'm sure we can share that study with you afterwards if you're interested. But as I recall why we were faster, and in particular I was focused on the data engineering tasks, within SAS Studio it was the automations and the built-in steps, right? And you see similar stuff in Enterprise Guide, but it was the built-in steps and the fact that you could just sort of build out the flows. You didn't have to be a coder. If you'd code, you could do it too. You'd pull in the code, but you can just drag and drop, use all of these 170 plus out-of-the-box steps to achieve a lot of this sort of, you know, core pipeline building tasks much quicker than building it out from scratch, say in Python.
And with that, thank you very much, Mark and Ron. If you have any further questions, they will be in the Innovation Hub, and you can go meet them at the booth. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and also thank you, guys. Don't forget to share your feedback. That helps us a lot to understand what sort of content you're looking for. It's on the app, and I look forward to seeing you around in the conference. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.